I would like to end our recess. I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge the presence of Board of Supervisor member Randy Morris. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Armenter? Ms. Barrios?
Here.
Mr. Campbell? Mr. Casalot?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Ms. Valencia Jones?
Here.
Ms. Jessica Jones?
Here.
Mr. Laborde?
Here.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Slaughter? Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Starnes?
Here.
Ms. Wagner? Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
We have 15 present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect Ms. Slaughter is here, but has temporarily stepped outside of the room. I'll turn it back over to you, Lori and Portia.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you had a great lunch. We do have Dr. Moore with us, and so we're ready to start.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Moore.
Good afternoon.
Would you please give us a 5-minute overview of how your experience has prepared you to be president of LSU?
Sure. First, let me just say good afternoon and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm quite honored and humbled, and I applaud your endurance of the entire committee over the next couple of days. So let me just say that I know much of this is in my letter of intent and in my curriculum vitae, but I'll highlight some of the things that I believe have prepared me to be president of LSU. First, I have had a great set of mentors, deans, provosts, and current and former presidents, and as well as a couple of executive leadership coaches who have really helped me grow and evolve as an academic leader. I've had also the opportunity to serve at LSU as a faculty member from 1994 to 2006, going through the ranks from assistant to full professor during that time, and becoming full professor in 2000. I know what it takes to be a successful faculty member in the education, research, service, and outreach. In addition to all the other things I did, including providing clinical service and outreach, I did serve as the advisor or co-advisor for 21 graduate students, master's and PhD. Proud to say that 18 of 21 of them, either their first job or their current job is in academia. I also did a lot on the outreach front and had the opportunity to work with the dean and executive dean to work with legislators in Louisiana, and was happy to be able to help in restoring a $750,000 annual commitment to equine research, which I noticed by looking at the material sent to me that I'm proud that that's still in there at that same amount. In addition to that, I oversaw the training of clinical trainees, advanced trainees, about 25 of them, all of which were quite successful. Since coming back to Ohio State, I've been a department chair for almost 8 years, where I manage faculty from the recruitment to mentoring, onboarding, and help them get through the promotion and tenure process in career advancement. Many of them are here. Many of them have gone on to even more significant positions. As a dean, or also during my time before dean, I served as either the acting or the executive director of our veterinary medical center and our veterinary health system, which grew dramatically both in case volume and revenue during that time. And we view that as really what we refer to as our clinical teaching laboratory, because veterinary students need those cases to learn to assimilate all the information they attain during those first 3 preclinical years. When I became dean here, I did assemble a very diverse leadership team, that diverse in many ways, including diversity of perspective, backgrounds, and experiences. And I tried to fill that team with a group of people that complemented my gaps and also always helps me identify my blind spots. I encourage them to be confident or candid, and to me, we have that kind of relationship, and I think that's what really is important. I've also worked with a group of internal stakeholders across the entire university. As you probably know, Ohio State University is a very complex organization with 15 colleges, 5 regional campuses, a big medical center, and others, and been able to make bridges, enhance collaborations. And just a few examples, we have a veterinary public health program through the College of Public Health. We have a business minor program for health sciences through the Fisher College of Business. And we've also established signature programs around our areas of strength and growth and opportunity. For us, the two main ones are infectious disease and comparative and translational oncology, which align very closely with strengths of the university. And in fact, we have leaders from our college in all those areas. Fortunately, even starting back when I was an assistant professor, and I always say wet behind the ears, I was given the opportunity to work with leadership at the School of Veterinary Medicine in philanthropy, and was quite successful in raising funds there. And then when I came back here to Ohio State for the last 14 plus years, I have been a very active member of our advancement team. So transitioning into the dean role 5.5 years ago was actually quite easy, and have had substantial success there, which I know we'll cover later. But at the same time, I think another important piece is over the last 6 years, I have had great opportunities to engage on a regular basis with legislators, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the chancellor of higher education, the director of the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and many others, hosting about 60 or more of them here at the college, but meeting with many more of them in person or in groups. And what that has led to is this year in our biennial budget, the governor of Ohio has included in his executive budget a $4 and $5 million supplemental line item to the college. That is never happened in the history of our college, and it made it through the House without any issues. It's currently with the Senate, and I've talked with a few senators this week, and it seems to be safe. If that happens, that will, if you think about what we get currently from the state, that will increase our state appropriation by between 37 and 50%. 37, if we look at what we get from the state as it matriculates through the college budget formula. But if we look at it in totality, it'll be close to 50% increase. And that's because we've built trust with them. We've shown why it's important, the impact of the veterinary profession. Built a lot of strong relationships with many other commodity groups, which don't have time to really go into. Importantly, as all of you know, having a strategic plan for your institution provides a great roadmap. And I'm proud that I led a grassroots group of 120 faculty and staff through a process. We developed a very bold and ambitious and compelling strategic plan. Our ambition was, or is, to be the model comprehensive college of veterinary medicine in the world, impacting animal and human health through innovation, collaboration, and excellence. I think it's important to talk just for a minute about be the model. And that doesn't mean to be number one. It means that when other colleges around the world are thinking of what they should be doing in education, research, or other activities, they ask themselves, I wonder what Ohio State is doing. And to that end, in the last 5 years, in the QS International rankings, back when I first became dean, we were not ranked in the top 25 in the world. In 2021, we ranked number 6 in the world and number 3 among US colleges of veterinary medicine. Be the model also gives an opportunity in a big organization, and I know the LSU system is much bigger than our college, but in a 1,200 person organization and you have a strategic plan, most people don't know what role they can play in realizing that. But by saying if we are each the model at what we do, then all of us can contribute to the greater good and the increase toward reaching our collective goals. And sometimes we have to change our goals, but most of the time it's just slightly. And the last 2 things I'll say is that I have served on the University Foundation Board as the Dean representative for 4 years and learned a lot from many other people on that board, as well as serving on multiple groups across the campus. And so if I had to boil it down, I would say, really what I would say in summary is the experiences of the importance of listening to learn, the importance of empathy and giving grace, the experience of waiting too long to make a decision, and the experience of making acting too soon and making a decision. I know my time at LSU really instilled in me a great love and admiration for the people and the culture of Louisiana, and I continue to have great relationships with colleagues and friends, but also with in-laws. The experience of COVID-19 here, and I'm sure everywhere, really demonstrated to me the capability of and the motivation and commitment of our faculty, staff, and students with a sense of urgency can really do anything. We were the only college that actually returned to the normal schedule the week after spring break. All other colleges waited another week. We were ready. We volunteered to be the guinea pig, no pun intended. And it gave us an opportunity to move forward, but also gave the opportunity for the university's Office of the CIO to pilot things, because on the following Monday, they had 6,500 online courses to begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question will come from Dr. Gabriela Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. What's your vision for LSU as an 8-institution system, including LSU Ag Center and health centers? Please describe short and long-term goals and metrics for measuring your success.
Sure. So thank you for that question. Although I'm sure that I would learn more and evolve in my thinking if I were to have the honor to come there as I learn more about it. But I think spending time on each campus and learning about the areas of strengths and opportunity to build on from a growth perspective and having impact, to learn the unique opportunities, programs, and nuances of each campus. I've read about them. I'm familiar somewhat from when I was there. But really, how do we do that to realize the potential that are that in areas that are ripe for collaboration? Because I think that is a key to moving forward. I also believe there's great opportunity to unify and cultivate a system-wide culture as a one university system of excellence, integrity, diversity, collaboration, and exponential impact. And I do believe we have to focus heavily on our undergraduate students, not solely, but heavily, because if they are not successful, it's unlikely that our graduate and professional students, we will have a pipeline of them that can come in and be successful as well. We must invest in the recruitment, professional and career development, and retention of top faculty talent. I have looked and I know that the faculty there work hard. They have great impact and discovery, but I also know, just like here, we don't have enough faculty at LSU, and certainly in key priority areas. We must invest our financial capital in our intellectual capital, which is really our people. And that's certainly faculty and also staff and students. We must ensure that we leverage the strengths, resources, and assets across the entire system. That's the LSU Ag Center and the extension programs that really serve all 64 parishes and really help take the research and discovery that happens in the system out into an applied way to help solve the problems of the people and the communities of Louisiana. One of the things I've noticed, and I know this because when I was there, I collaborated with some of them at Pennington and both the health science centers in Shreveport and New Orleans. There is a tremendous amount of resource and intellectual capital there. And I believe that trying to bring them together in a unified way, I don't want to imply that they aren't unified, but I think there's always room to unify and to collaborate and build upon the collective strengths. And to me, I believe that is really something that is a diamond in the rough that has so much opportunity, whether it's in infectious diseases, whether it's in addressing the health disparities and all the public health concerns that are confronting Louisianans. I know, unfortunately, Louisiana ranks near the bottom, or maybe the bottom, in public health metrics like cancer and heart disease and diabetes. But we have the intellectual power and capacity there. We just need to leverage it and bring it all together. And I also would like to say that I believe with all of the things in the health sciences, but also across engineering and other biological sciences, the School of Veterinary Medicine and others, we need to be thinking of this, in my view, as a One Health approach, which is the inextricable link between human, animal, and environmental health. We know climate change and coastal erosion and all those things are happening. We also know that habitats are changing for for animals and plants. This world all works together as one ecosystem. And I think the resources collectively at LSU positions it very well, if done correctly, to really address many of the issues that are affecting Louisiana as we speak. And I really want to emphasize those health disparities, because those are some of the things that we do have the ability to prevent. Those are preventable diseases with proper preventive care. That will require proper financial management and stewardship of our limited resources, provide integration, alignment, and collaboration. We need to make sure we're collaborative and cooperative and not competitive. There's an untapped amount of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit there. I know that firsthand. And also we need to enhance efficiencies and cost effectiveness to maximize impact. Briefly, to go to your second point, which was around short-term and long-term impacts, you know, I think the short-term impact, from what I can tell, is someone to come in and restore a sense of morale and energy and hope and enthusiasm and confidence in the future of LSU and the state. I think it's ripe for and necessary that we enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion at its broadest definition. And that's something that has to happen at the student, staff, faculty, and leadership level. We do need to address the issues that are certainly in the public around Title IX and compliance, and I know we'll touch on that. And I need to get out and build relationships immediately with members across all 8 campuses and learn from them, but also need to start building relationships and learning from our legislators, the governor, and many other state leaders. From a longer term perspective, which could be 3 to 5 or 10 years, we need to put the university on a stronger financial foundation. We need to grow our philanthropic support, particularly for academic programs. We need to think about perhaps a different business model than we relied upon. And I don't mean we as LSU, but we as academicians and in higher education. And so we need to diversify our funding portfolio. If we don't recruit and retain the top faculty talent, we're not going to have increased and high level research, because that's who drives it. They're the fuel that drives that engine of innovation and creativity. Certainly, a diversity of student body is important, but we also have to mirror that with our faculty and staff, because right now my understanding is about 30% of the undergraduate student body, at least, is an underrepresented minority, but faculty in particular are far below that. And so we need role models that they can relate to, they relate to culturally, they can look up to as mentors. But by doing all those things, I believe national and international reputations and rankings, that'll come later. We don't need to focus on the rankings. We need to focus on the work and our people and the outcomes and the impact. Who knows? We could become a top 100 research university. We could maybe move into the top 50. Yes, that's a bold and audacious goal, but I believe with the right investment and focus, we could do that. I know LSU is not a member of the AAU. That's a prestigious group. I don't know why we couldn't hopefully at least have that goal. And then finally, I do know that there is a lot of resource, and I know that Louisiana doesn't have a comprehensive cancer center, but between all the institutions, not just within the LSU system, but within LSU, and also even regionally, because I'm also aware that Arkansas and Mississippi and neighboring states don't have that, we could be the epicenter of a really powerful cancer center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question will come from Dr. Nelson.
Good afternoon, Dr. Moore.
Good
Can you
afternoon.
please describe your leadership style with emphasis on hiring, delegation, and decision-making, sir?
Absolutely. Well, first, I consider myself a servant leader, and I like to give credit to everybody else except myself. I believe it's really important as a leader to articulate a very bold and compelling vision. It needs to be able to engage and inspire our constituents, all of them. It needs to really result in transformative initiatives that can really revolutionize and have impact, and particularly meaningful impact. And I know personally that is what energizes philanthropic donors. They want big ideas of how we're going to change Louisiana, change LSU, change the world. I am a values-driven and a principle-centered leader. I value heavily integrity, trust, accountability, and mutual respect, and I expect that to be bi-directional, meaning I always treat others as I would expect them to treat me, even if there's disagreement. My philosophy, and I alluded to this, is our successes are because of our collective efforts. And when we win, we are successful, it is we. When we don't meet our goals or we fail, and sometimes by failing we learn, I accept that responsibility. I don't believe it's appropriate for a leader of any organization or unit to lay the blame at someone else. So when we win, it's we. When we lose, it's me. I also believe listening to multiple voices is really, really important, and actively listening with the intent to learn and understand. We all have backgrounds and experiences. None of us have the same ones, which is wonderful. And we should think about all the background and experiences of those individuals, because as we know from volumes of research evidence, the more diverse a team, an organization, an institution, the higher performing, greater productivity, greater innovation, and also better solutions to complex problems. We all know we have a lot of complex problems in our country and in our world, and in this case, in Louisiana and perhaps LSU. But there's a lot of intellectual capacity and experiences that are diverse, and we need to sort of harness that energy and those ideas. The other thing speaking about is shared governance, and I believe shared governance is critical, particularly in an academic institution. And what I mean by that is we have to engage not just faculty, but certainly faculty, but also engage staff and students and others. Because again, we're going to learn things from them and their perspectives. They're the ones that I say are in the trenches. They're the ones working wherever they're working. And when issues come up, they're probably the best ones to come up with solutions to them, or at least some solutions. I like to say that I prefer a firefighter to a smoke detector, meaning I like people who find problems to bring forth solutions or potential solutions for us to consider, because again, they're likely the ones that have some of the best ideas. I think it's important to assemble a diverse team, as I mentioned, I've done here, and we would have to assess that. And diverse team, think about it broadly. It's everything from gender to background to race and ethnicity and all the other things that we need to think about. And that's the leadership team, and that's every committee or task force or other working group we have, as well as our faculty, staff, and students. The other thing I think is really important is to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats on the right boat, and that's for Louisiana and all of its waterways, to row in the same direction. We have to be pulling in the same direction. If not, we're going to be counterproductive, we're going to be competing, and that's not going to get us anywhere. I do believe it's critical to delegate, and I've learned this over my time. And I know what is important about delegation. It means empowering those that you delegate it to, making crystal clear what the expectation is, turning them loose, and giving them the power and trust to do it. Now, if they need help, certainly come back to us, but I shouldn't be, nor would I have time in a system as large as LSU to be looking over everyone's shoulder. There would be expected deliverables and timelines, but I think it's about delegation, responsibility, and accountability. One thing is I don't like surprises. And so, here in Columbus, I tell my team, anything that we're doing and making a decision about, we have to give it the dispatch test. And the Columbus Dispatch is our newspaper here in Columbus. I rarely want to be on the front page of the Dispatch. I was on the front page of the Dispatch a couple of weeks ago, or our college was, and that was because of a very good thing. So I do think we have to make sure that all the leaders are in the loop on things that could have a not so good impact on our reputation. And I'd rather learn about that as soon as it happens so that I'm aware of it, but also to help them solve those issues. And I think those are the main things that I would say with regard to my leadership style, and also what I expect of and how I support leadership, my leadership team, but also leaders across the entire system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jessica Jones, would you please ask our next question?
Sure. You have seen LSU Title IX issues in too many headlines. How do we make protection of students, faculty, and staff from sexual harassment, discrimination, and assault a hard-line priority for all institutions of the LSU system?
Yes, unfortunately, I have seen and read and heard about the Title IX issues and compliance that LSU is facing. Let me say that that LSU is not alone. I feel for you. I empathize with you. I know it's embarrassing, and quite frankly, it's a very, very serious thing, not just for LSU, but for all of higher education. And I would say, let's turn that into an opportunity. Let's turn it into an opportunity to be on the grand stage, to get it right and to be the model in addressing it and going forward with possible solutions, implementation of necessary best practices. And I know some of those have been outlined in the Blackwell report, and I'm sure many of those are already underway, but we need to do that to prevent these. Clearly, we must be compliant with Title IX and all other federal, state, local rules, laws, and regulations around compliance, around harassment, around all other forms, things related to discrimination. However, I believe being compliant is not enough, because if we just seek to be compliant, we're probably always going to be behind the 8 ball, because that landscape continually changes. We must work to ensure that the university community is one where people feel safe, they feel valued, respected, comfortable, a place they feel that they belong, and a place that they can thrive or be successful. And to me, it has to be a hard line from the top down and from the bottom up and from all sides. We have to address this as a community and as an institution and as a system. We must make sure it's expected and very clear non-compliance with Title IX and all the other regulatory and legal things that we must do. It is not something we can tolerate. And we have to hold people accountable regardless of the position, including me as president if I were there. We do have to address these, but what we have to start with is we have to make sure that we have proper procedures in place, that we educate people and inform them of what the laws and rules are. This needs to be reinforced on a regular basis. I know that here we are required every year to undergo mandatory sexual misconduct training, all employees, whether they're faculty, administrators, staff, or students. I don't know what happens there, but here, if someone doesn't do that annually, they are not eligible for annual merit compensation. In years where salaries don't get increased, there have to be other ways, and we don't want to be punitive. We'd rather be sort of incentivize it and let them know the importance of it to the integrity and the respect of the institution. But there are ways that we would have to make sure people comply with that. We also must implement best practices, as I alluded to from the report. And that was a pretty long list, and I'm sure it will take time and resources to do that. But we also have to make sure that there's a division of responsibility. We can't have the same people doing certain things, no different than in the financial world. We have to make sure that we have checks and balances all along the way, and that reporting is required regardless of the nature of it, and that actually the president needs to be made aware of it and not kept in the dark, because the president is ultimately responsible for the reputation and the success of the institution. I know we will not likely prevent every incident of sexual harassment or domestic violence or anything like that. I think it would be naive of me to think so. I would love to aspire to that. I would love to have us aspire to that. But we also have to make sure that we create a place that everybody, students, faculty, staff, and others, they feel comfortable coming forward, that it's confidential or anonymous, that we're going to provide them the support they need to heal, to restore, and to once again thrive in the environment. We don't want to lose people because of the actions of someone else. This is a cultural issue. This is a cultural issue at other places. You, like me, knows that changing a culture is very, very tough, very challenging, and it takes time, effort, and commitment. I believe, although the saying goes that culture trumps strategy for breakfast, lunch, or eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I know how great Louisiana cuisine is. We can, if we have full commitment, we can change the culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will come from Ms. Hannah Barrios.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Moore.
Hello.
How would you ensure LSU campuses remain student-centered? Please describe how you interact with and engage students, specifically in the area of fostering student success. How do you incorporate student input and respond to their needs and concerns?
Thank you very much. Clearly, the principal reasons institutions of higher learning were created and exist is to provide opportunities to educate students. And in the case of land grant institutions like the Baton Rouge campus in particular, it was really back in 1863, the purpose of that was to provide access to the masses. And this was around educating people in agriculture, military sciences, other sciences and engineering. And of course, over time that has changed and expanded as our country and humanity have grown. But to me, being student-centered first and foremost means meeting students where they are. And every student is at a different place. We can't expect all students to come in at the same level, and we can't expect that all programs are going to be delivered at the same level because students have different needs. My greatest joy in my career, which has been many years in higher education, is to really see my students be successful and actually be more successful than me. And I can only speak to I could speak to more, but of the 21 graduate students I was the advisor or co-advisor for, I think I mentioned this, 18 of them went into higher education, either their first job or currently. And I'm proud to say that 5 of them have leadership roles. 1 is a dean of extension, 1 is a department chair, 2 are directors of laboratory animal services, and many of them are on faculty at other places. With a student-first approach or a mantra, I think this helps guide the institution in making decisions that are right for students. We have to keep students in the forefront. Yes, faculty are incredibly important. Otherwise, we couldn't educate students. Staff are vitally important for many reasons. But if we're there, we have to keep students first, and that will drive our decision-making and also help us realize the mission areas and the impact and the real purpose that we exist as an institution of higher learning. Let me tell you a few ways that I have involved myself in students here, and I'll do it just in my last 5 years as dean. I work closely with our students. For example, as soon as our student or our applicants to veterinary school get an offer and they are notified for a seat, and we offer more people a seat than we have because we know they have many choices. It's very competitive. I call every single one of them. This year I called 242 students. I called them to congratulate them. And more importantly, I called them to say, is there anything I can answer as you make your decision? I want you to be the most successful. I want you to go to the place that is best for you. I hope it's here, but I realize it may not be. But for you to make the right decision, I'm here to answer questions for you. And if you don't come here, if you ever need anything, a helping hand, whatever, you can always reach out. And also, who knows, maybe our paths will cross again at some time throughout our careers. I also am involved in orientation and onboarding. I go into every class, so first year, second year, and third year, once a semester for an hour. I'm there to listen. I'm there to give updates on things that are particularly relevant to students, like projected tuition increases or other things. And I'm really there to listen to them. They identify problems, and many of them, as I referred to earlier, because they identify the problem and they're in the trench, they know what the solutions could be. And so it's there to listen to them and think about that. I also visit with groups of students. We have affinity groups to help promote diversity. We have a Black affinity group, a Latin, an Asian, an LGBTQ, a women's, a first generation, and many others. And they have unique needs. And they invite me to things and I go to. With some of the things that have happened in our country in the last year, there's been a lot of trauma that has been endured by certain groups. I always ask them if they would like me to join them in their affinity groups. Most of the time they say yes, and they'll say, thank you for coming and thank you for sharing your support. And now we would like you to go so we can really talk among ourselves. And I understand that because they're experiencing something very different and they need their own space to talk. I just want them to all know that I'm here, I care about them, and I want to do everything possible for them. I involve students in outreach and engagement, fundraising activities. We have student ambassadors that engage and help tell our story. There's nothing more powerful than a student telling a story about their experience at the university than a dean or anyone else. That's what people resonate with because it's having an impact on the lives and the careers of our students. I will say that I'm often sought out by our students via email, text, private message, etc. Just last night, I got a text at 11:59 from one of our first year students. I was in bed by then, but it said, I'm really worried about one of my friends and classmates. She's been getting text messages from multiple people. She believes it's harassment by somebody, perhaps a classmate, and I told her to reach out to you. This morning, I texted back and said, thank you for letting me know. Please reach out and let her know I'm here. I'll do whatever I can to help. So, I try to be, even though I'm the dean and I've got a lot of other things on my plate, I try to be very approachable and relatable to the students. The 23rd day of my deanship back in 2015, we lost a student in our second year class to suicide. That really impacted me. I had been impacted by suicide of colleagues, friends, and students in prior, but never as the leader of a college. And it really reinforced to me the need for a comprehensive and integrated health and well-being program for our students, faculty, and staff. So for our students, and this is all based on the 9 dimensions of wellness, but for our students, we have 2 full-time on-site counselors or clinical therapists, a part-time psychiatrist that is available for our students at no cost. We have financial advisor, we have an Office of Teaching and Learning and Peer Tutoring program, an Office of Career Management and Professional Development, which helps students with networking, career opportunities, personal branding, and other things. I mentioned the affinity groups. We have established a community of inclusion. We're revising the curriculum to give them more time out of the classroom and having hands-on experiences. And also something I did based on evidence over two years, it was an opt-in for first-year students. This past summer, it was mandatory that all incoming first-year students participated in a 7-week, 1 hour per week online session using a program called MindStrong. MindStrong is an evidence-based cognitive behavioral therapy program that helps really build behavioral skills with the goal of improving coping, building resilience, and allowing them to be able to move forward. The previous 2 years, we had them do it when they first arrived at campus, and we know that stress levels rise about the 3rd week of school because of exams. So now we have this administered before they come. We did follow this, and there's a study being published in the near future that shows significant improvement in stress, anxiety, and depression among those individuals when we looked at it pre and post implementation of that program. So, we do seek feedback from students in a variety of ways, as I said, in those town halls, but also through course evaluations. We don't wait until the next year to look at them. We look at them as they come in. We also used to have exit surveys of our 4th year students when they finish, but they can't remember back, neither could I, to their first year. So now we have exit surveys for every year after 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year, so that we can make changes for the upcoming year so that the next class doesn't have to endure whatever that issue was. And I think that's been very helpful. And then the final thing I'll say about feedback is we are mandated by our accrediting board. So we get, after the exit surveys, we do follow-up 1-year and 5-year post-graduation surveys of our graduates as well as the employers. And we are using that as we are redesigning the curriculum. Let me just say that after my candidacy for this position became public last Wednesday evening, I felt it was critical because of the nature of my relationship with students, staff, and faculty that I send out an email letting them know that I had applied and I was a candidate. I just want to give you, there were many messages from everyone, but I just want to read a couple from students because I found them pretty poignant. One says, I hope LSU will understand that when you are offered the position that you have to delay accepting the position for 2 years until I finish my program. I love having you as my dean and try really hard to be super happy for you about this new opportunity. You're going to do an amazing job and be really missed. So I know I can't delay that if I was given the opportunity, but it does speak to, I hopefully gives a sense of my relationship with our students.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Mitchell, would you please ask the next question?
Yes. So tell us, how would you approach leading and working with faculty? What are your views on faculty governance? And please describe your previous experience in leading, supporting, and/or growing research and scholarly activity.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. I alluded a little bit earlier to shared governance, but I do believe it's of paramount importance, and it's more than just having a faculty senate, or in this case, we have what's called a university senate, which has faculty, staff, and student representatives. It's more than having a body that votes on and endorses or approves things. It's really about reaching out to the faculty broadly on many issues. And I realize it can't be every faculty, but you can have faculty representation on a variety of issues, initiatives, task forces, et cetera, because we need to hear from faculty. We also need to hear from staff and students, because sometimes us in administration are viewed as being in the tower, the ivory tower, or the clock tower, or whatever tower it might be. And it is important that we get that feedback and that engagement. Let me just say what I've done since I became dean. We did not have a faculty council here at the College of Veterinary Medicine. We had an executive council, but that was comprised of a bunch of people. We now have a faculty council. We've had it for 4 years. They're elected by their peers. There's a president, vice president, et cetera. I meet with them monthly, and they set the agenda. They base that on, they survey the faculty every month for issues that come up. And they send those to me in advance so that I can either, one, be prepared or bring someone from my cabinet, depending upon the nature of the topic. So if it's about students, I probably need to have my associate dean of professional programs there with me. I started a group of listen and learn sessions over lunch and breakfast with faculty, small groups where people felt comfortable sharing. I got so much feedback and great ideas. Here's just a couple. One, they were so tired of getting so many emails every day from different people. This is a simple thing. We instituted a weekly e-newsletter that contains, in short form, things that might be of interest to faculty, staff, and students with links to more information if they want it. I also established, based on their recommendation, what's called a Dean's Digest. They wanted something very short, very concise, and very topic oriented. Those I send out maybe once to 3 times a week, usually once, but depending on things like during COVID, it ended up a lot more frequent because things were changing so rapid. I instituted all faculty monthly meetings. So all faculty in the college, I meet with them monthly. Sometimes I set the agenda. I put out, ask for agenda items from my cabinet, but also from the faculty to address things, seek input and feedback before making decisions. During COVID, we initiated a virtual college-wide town hall for faculty, staff, and students. And I can't tell you how popular that's been. And even when we go back to being in face, I will continue that, because I know from having those in person, the participation rate is so much better virtually because it's easier. If somebody is on a different campus or they're in some, they're some other location, they can join us, they can hear. We also record those, and those are posted to our intranet. So if anybody misses those, they can go back and hear them. As a department chair, I initiated what I refer to as the Faculty and Professional and Leadership Development Series, which was once a month. We had people come in from university, from our professional societies and others. Since becoming dean, that has grown to a college-wide program. We also implemented a similar program for new faculty because we know new faculty have other needs, other things that they need to learn. So we also have a new faculty series. I do invest heavily, both as a department chair and now as a dean, in professional and leadership development of our faculty, sending them to, nominating them for, paying for, and sending them to professional or leadership development opportunities if they're interested. And I've also hired a number of executive leadership coaches for those individuals who have been either demonstrated, that they want to pursue a leadership role at some level, or have demonstrated the skills necessary for that. Let me just say, when you talk about my experience with leading research and growing research, as part of our comprehensive strategic plan, one of the goal areas that were priorities, not surprisingly, was innovative and impactful research. And it was really to grow our research enterprise and to increase our research intensive faculty by 10. That's pretty impressive considering we only have 15 research intensive faculty members now. So it's almost doubling it. I'm proud to say that we've just launched a search for about 6 to 7 new research intensive faculty members with $1 million of new recurring money that I was able to get from the university upon my reappointment. We're doing this in areas of key strategic priorities aligned with our signature programs of infectious disease, particularly in emerging and re-emerging viruses, because that's so important, and also in comparative and translational oncology. The great thing is these align very well with resources across the campus. The Comprehensive Cancer Center at the university, they do not hire faculty. They're not a TIU, but they help provide financial support to colleges and units when they hire faculty. In the last 3-ish years, they have provided almost $10 million to our college for startup and also for renovation of laboratories for our faculty doing cancer research, but also because we had some extra research space that was outdated. They're modernizing it, we're doing it with their money. They will then put other faculty across the university in that space, and they have access to that space for 5 years. And so it's just a way to partner and collaborate. I would also say that we have a lot of people since COVID hit have given money for research, and we had 3 donors give a total of $2 million for research. About $1.25 million of that was for COVID-19. That was so important to our faculty who are virologists and immunologists. They weren't able to use the money that they had from their NIH or other grants for COVID-19 because that's not what the money was granted for. So this helped them jumpstart their research and actually led to our faculty being integral to get to the university getting a $10 million grant from the Cancer Center and also from NIH to, it's actually, the acronym is Stop COVID. And so it's something really important. But also this has led to other opportunities where our faculty have developed vaccine candidates, inhibitors of the virus entering cells, diagnostics, and therapeutics. So really important that we fund research, not just through research grants, but through building infrastructure, hiring faculty, and through philanthropic support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, the next question is coming from Chancellor Clark, but before you ask the question, let me check something really quickly. Okay. All right, Chancellor Clark.
Thank you. Dean Moore, in a time of limited and even shrinking resources, budgeting and resource allocations are important responsibilities. Budget cuts to higher education have resulted in many unfilled faculty and staff positions, lagging salaries, fewer graduate students, and higher tuition and overhead fees. How can the LSU system begin to address some of these inequities over the next 5 years without assuming higher budgets?
And I'm sorry, let me jump in here. I just want to point out for logistical purposes, we must stop the interview at 3:15, and it is 10 minutes to 3 now. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 questions remaining. So just keep that in mind when proposing the questions and answering them so we can make sure we get through all of them.
I've addressed some of this already, but LSU is not unique. Higher education has experienced dwindling state support over many years. All institutions, including LSU, I think, have to rethink their business model. We have to think about public-private partnerships. We have to rely heavily on fundraising and philanthropy. We need to identify and figure out ways to streamline our operations, have cost efficiencies and cost effectiveness. We need to prioritize resources in areas of our strength and opportunity. We need to reduce unnecessary or unplanned redundancy. And again, those extra resources are so important. We really need to focus on what makes LSU and all of its entities and campuses distinctive and focus on those. What we do know is that in 2018, 35% of federal funding went to 22 institutions of higher education. LSU needs to do things to get into that arena so that we can capitalize on that research funding. We need to think about how we change our delivery models of education. COVID-19 has certainly shown we can do different things. That doesn't mean we continue to do exactly what we're doing now, but we should think about what we've learned and continue to implement that. And we really need to think about our business model. And I would say that two things right now that we have to be really concerned about is affordability and also the public perception of the value of an undergraduate or a professional or graduate degree, and have to really demonstrate broadly to those things how we do it. I believe I have the experience working with the legislature and working with public-private institutions, and as I'll highlight in fundraising to address those issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. This question is going to be asked by Dr. Tara Smith.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please discuss your commitment to and experience enhancing diversity, including diversity as it relates to underrepresented groups, as well as diversity of thought and experience.
Thank you. I think I've touched on that about experience and perspectives and value and all that. I'm going to focus on the other part just for the sake of time. Certainly, this is something that I've been passionate about for a long time. When I became dean, I made sure to make diversity, equity, and inclusion one of the foundational principles of what I would be doing and what our strategic plan would be built upon. We know, as I already said, about the value of diversity, but diversity is not enough. We have to build an inclusive and community where people belong, they feel comfortable, welcome, safe, and where they can thrive. The veterinary profession, unfortunately, is considered the whitest, most homogeneous, and at one point called the most racist profession. That is not something I'm proud of. That has emboldened me and inspired me to do more. I am a white male. I recognize and acknowledge I have privilege. I also bring diversity. Diversity of background. I'm from Appalachia, from West Virginia. I'm a first-generation college student. And I also bring other attributes of diversity that certainly we could talk about. But that's enough about me. Academic leaders have to walk the talk. We can't just talk about diversity. We have to take action. And I believe the materials that I shared with you that I'll touch on briefly demonstrate what we have been able to do. We have grown through intentional and purposeful ways our underrepresented minority populations of veterinary students from a 5-year average before I became dean of a little over 11% to now over 30%, now in the last 2 years approaching 35%. That's a 3% or three times or 300% increase in underrepresented minorities. We've done similar in areas of first-generation college students, which really is another group that's underrepresented in veterinary medicine and other areas, and that's sort of a socioeconomic demographic. That's not enough. We have to create that inclusive in community, as I talked about. So we've developed a community of inclusion certificate program, the affinity groups that I alluded to, and many other things to make sure. I will just tell you that when I became dean, we had 4 Black students across all 4 years. Now we have 42. We had a very small number of Hispanic or Latinx students when I became dean. Over the 4 years of our program now, we have 98. Same with Asian, same with other underrepresented groups. And as I said, 30% of them being first generation. So diversity, equity, inclusion are really important to me. It drives me. And I think what you've seen is it actually helps. What our programming has delivered on that, and we have results. Not only are we recruiting them, we're supporting them, and they are completing their programs at the same or higher rate than non-underrepresented students.
Thank you.
One last thing I'd say is we've been recognized 4 years in a row by a national publication for our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I serve on several boards and task forces in the community. So I take this serious way beyond just my job. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Laborde, would you please ask the next question?
Yes. So COVID-19 has really impacted campus life and daily life here and all over the country. What are your thoughts on fall semester 2021 and beyond for extended or new COVID protocols?
Yeah, although I'm not sure of the exact protocols that have been used over the last year or being thought about for the fall, we certainly have to think about how we try to create the campus on all 8 campuses of how we bring back students in person to the extent possible. I think what I say is we have to hope for the best and plan for the worst because we don't know what's going to change. It looks like numbers are moving in the right direction as vaccines have been delivered and injected into arms, but also we know variants are developing and we have to be constantly monitoring that and be ready to be flexible and nimble. I think the best thing we can do is encourage our students, faculty, and staff to become vaccinated. That means getting not just the first, but the second vaccine. And when the federal, state, and others recommend that we get a booster later because of variants, we need to think about doing that. It's really important to target messages to the right audience. And for undergraduates, we also have to target the message to their families. And one message doesn't fit all audiences. We need to think about how we send the message out to various groups, whether those are Black, they're Latin or Hispanic, they're Asian, they're rural, Caucasian, they're urban or suburban, because of differences of view, trust in government, culture, and religious views and others. And so we need to be very intentional about how that message goes. Without proper vaccination, and possibly even with it, we're going to have to probably think about continued physical distancing, maybe not 6 feet, maybe 3 feet. We have to think about PPE, masks, and others, and we have to ensure that we don't exceed densities that are based upon guidelines from federal, state, and local public health groups. We need to think about continuing to test, at least test cohorts. We need to make sure we have identified facilities if we do have a need so that we can quarantine and isolate students who happen to live on campus, residents on campus. And we also need to think about, we can plan for an in-person return, but we also need to be ready to be prepared for a hybrid or some sort of flexible hybrid situation. We also need to think about how we're going to monitor that going forward in years to come. And a lot of evidence is showing the best way to do that is through monitoring wastewater. But I would say also, if it doesn't already exist, and I imagine it probably does, be really important to set up a comprehensive health monitoring team for COVID-19 that is really system-wide. Not all campuses or units are going to need the exact same things because of where they're located and the nature of the students and the nature of the business. But if we don't have a system-wide approach to this, we are probably going to be caught off guard. And I think that would be something that would be really important. I think it also gives us a great opportunity to demonstrate to the state the value we bring to the state with all of our intellectual capital and expertise across our health sciences. We have a school of public health, we have medical schools, and we have the Pennington Biomedical and many others. And I think showing the impact that we can have will help us demonstrate to the legislature and to the citizens of Louisiana why we are important and why they need to continue to invest in us. In my understanding, there's going to be quite a bit of money that will be coming forward, probably from the federal government. And so by doing that and being positioning ourselves in a way, not only can we institute things to protect people from a healthcare perspective, but we can also be competitive for those research opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Cazalet, Would you please ask the next question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Moore, you've mentioned the importance just a moment ago of philanthropy. Could you succinctly discuss your fundraising experience and any thoughts you may have on additional revenue generation and revenue generation opportunities, and perhaps any relevant examples you may have?
Yes, I've been involved in philanthropy since I was on faculty at LSU. And when I came back here, let me focus though for sense of time on what I've done since I've become the dean. I did engage widely alumni, grateful clients of our veterinary health system and many others throughout the community. I did establish what's called a Be the Model Philanthropic Engagement Council, also a campaign circle. But really what it's about relationship building. That's what fundraising is. And it's about getting out there, spending time. I believe that fundraising is the most important thing a university president can do. Yes, they have a lot of other responsibilities, but they also have to enjoy doing it. And I love engaging with people of all backgrounds and all areas, whether it's the people I mentioned or whether it's legislators or those in government. By doing what I've done, we have actually increased the 5 years prior to me coming to now, we've increased from about $55 million in the 5 years before to the last five, 142 million. So almost tripling that. Also during that time, almost tripling or actually exceeding the tripling of what the average fundraising per year is. We've grown our endowment from $25 million when I was dean to 68 million, which is 170% increase. And by the end of this fiscal year, it's projected based on commitments that will reach 75 million, which is a significant 3 times increase. That's not where we want to stop. Proudly, I've also increased philanthropic scholarships by 600%. The first year before I became dean, we distributed $385,000 of philanthropic scholarships. This year, we just distributed 2.7 million. My goal is 5.3 million, which would allow us to give every student a full ride for 1 year of their veterinary education. We've actually raised 70 million in capital for new facilities for clinics, education. We've gotten no support from the state for capital projects since 1998. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying we knew we had to go it alone. We've increased what we call transformational scholarships, which are 15 to 35,000 from 0 6 years ago to 85 this year. I could go on and on, but I would just say, looking at the fundraising activity at LSU, I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow, particularly on the academic fundraising side.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Chairman-elect of the Board of Supervisors, Remy Starnes, to ask the next questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Moore, what is your vision for the success of LSU athletics and its role in the holistic development of LSU student athletes?
Well, first of all, just let me say I am an avid collegiate sports fan and remain an avid LSU sports fan. Thinking back to my days on October 11th, 1997, when LSU beat #1 ranked Florida in Tiger Stadium. I was there. To Wally Morris's walk-off home run in 1996 to win the College World Series. Simone Gustus, a Baton Rouge native who everybody knows the wonderful things, and many, many more. I will just say in jest that also I believe the transfer portal was important to LSU, and I'm glad we could lend you our own Joe Burrow, JEAUXBURREAUX, to help you win the national championship, and I couldn't be more proud of him. Let me just say briefly, scholarships for athletes is really their doorway to an academic career or their education for most of them. We also know that only 2% of collegiate athletes make it to the pros. That means out of the 460,000 collegiate athletes, less than 10,000 of them make it that way. We have to make sure they are successful in the classroom so they can be successful in earning a living and having a good life. We know we have to support them. We know there's a lot of constraints on their time. There's conflicting things that they have to think about. We know, just like I said before, with other students, not all student athletes are the same, and they need a variety of things. We need to facilitate their time management skills, ensure they have proper nutrition, proper sleep, healthcare, provide emotional, social, and spiritual consultation and services needed. What we need to make sure is that we emphasize don't put themselves in situations where they could be harmed physically or harmed reputationally. And we must instill up in them following NCAA guidelines, not to put them in jeopardy or the program, but certainly making sure they don't lose eligibility. We also must do more than celebrate their success on the field or in the pool or on the bar or the beam. And we need to make sure that they know when they put on that Tiger uniform, that's an honor and a privilege, and it comes with responsibility. That responsibility is an everyday thing. Coaches and others have to role model that. But really, it's really about making sure they understand that they represent us. They have to demonstrate sportsmanship on the field, and they have to also demonstrate integrity, honesty, and all the other things that would make LSU great. So I think it's collegiate athletics is a wonderful contribution and complements all of our students' experiences. It's a great opportunity for athletes to get a college education, and we just need to make sure we have the right programs, the right expectations, and the right guidelines in place to ensure their success both in and out of the classroom.
Thank you, committee members, for those questions. Thank you for your answers. We have 9 minutes remaining. In these last 9 minutes, do you have any questions for this committee?
Well, I have several, but I also know I don't have time to ask them all. So one, I'm curious with what I referred to as all the intellectual capital and all of the expertise from Shreveport to Baton Rouge to New Orleans. Has there been any thought given to trying to unify and harness all of that under maybe I'm going to call it a vice president of health affairs or something, not to add bureaucracy, but just to bring those groups together, because there is a gold mine there waiting to be had. And I just wonder if there's been any thought given to that by the administration or the board.
This committee formed a subcommittee with that, among other issues, in mind. So I would like to ask Dr. Luke Laborde, who headed that effort, to address that question.
So this was an interesting and exciting opportunity on our behalf to look at the structure, not just of the medical systems, but all the others, to go back to some of the consultative work that had been hired by the university before. To answer your question specifically, we've looked at that and identified it as a potential. We actually came up with a list of about half a dozen recommendations that are waiting as advisory to the new president. We started with the foundational belief that the new president of the system needed the flexibility to be able to evaluate and design his or her own structure based on their personal strengths and the people that they wanted to build around them. But we have that and a variety of other recommendations, as I said, waiting for the successful candidate at this point.
Well, that's great to hear. And I'm glad you mentioned, because I was going to say the same thing. There's everything from engineering, environmental sciences, coastal restoration, agriculture and extension, and you could name a half a dozen or more. So my next question is really looking at the fundraising activity. I'm curious, I know there's two separate foundations and an alumni society. I'm curious the thoughts of the group. I have ideas, but I'm just curious the thoughts about how we leverage the loyalty, the passion, the pride, the willingness to give to the athletic foundation to support our great athletic program, not to take away from that fundraising at all, but how do we leverage that to in Louisiana, knowing what you all know, to really grow the academic fundraising to support our missions, endowments, et cetera?
I'd like to defer this question to Mr. Clarence Cazelot, who's a member of this search committee, obviously, and a very active and prominent member of the LSU Foundation.
Dr. Moore, it's a great question, one we've certainly targeted in the past. And you may be aware we started a $1.5 billion campaign a few years ago. We just exceeded $1 billion ahead of schedule. And I'm pleased to tell you 60% of that was academics, 40% was athletics. So it was a comprehensive One LSU campaign. I would tell you that the Tiger Athletic Foundation, the LSU Foundation, and the Alumni Association have worked very collaboratively around how we can best coordinate and optimize, maximize the philanthropy. So great point, but I think we're moving certainly in that direction. A lot more to do.
Great. Let me just mention, I forgot to mention this, but during my first year as dean, I closed the second largest gift ever to the university, which was $39 million for our college, which has grown to 51. So really, it goes back to that, it goes back to, having a bold vision and telling a story and getting students and faculty in front of donors. So I believe with all the talent there at LSU and all the pride and passion in that state, I'm confident that academic fundraising can skyrocket to support our faculty, our staff, and our students.
I agree with you. And I would just add, you mentioned probably the one ingredient we need, which is that bold vision. And that certainly, I think, will excite people and cause them to open up their pocketbooks and support this university in larger ways than they have in the past.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that question? Seeing none, do you have, we've got 4 minutes left. Is there another question you'd like to ask of the committee?
Well, I might as well take the advantage of the time I have with you. So I know it's important, and I know you all can't answer it in this time frame, but what would you think would be a sign of success after the first year of your new president? And then particularly if that differs from some of the things I outlined, but also success in that mid to long term.
I'd like to defer that to one of the members of the committee, preferably the non-board member. Yeah, Chancellor Clark.
I would like to see that bold vision that was just talked about a moment ago.
Anyone else?
I would like the community, the One LSU community, to buy into that bold mission. So not just a proposal, not just a vision, but the community embracing it.
That's a really important point. As I indicated with our bold strategic plan, there were 120 faculty and staff that had their fingerprints on it.
And I just want to reinforce that it's critical that that bold vision address the system as, as one LSU and not just as a flagship campus.
Very important point. I believe I mentioned that as a system-wide approach to this. If I didn't, I think that's critical for us to leverage all of the assets across the entire system.
All right. We've got about 1 more minute. I will let it go, or you can, if you've got another question, we'll sneak it in. If not, we will end here. I see Portia telling me otherwise on the screen, so I'll go with that.
No, I'm good. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for this opportunity to interview, and if given an opportunity to visit with you in person, I look forward to it. I wish you the very best, and I hope you find the best possible president for LSU, because that's what you deserve. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dr. Moore.
All right. Do we have anything logistical from either Ms. Williams or Ms. Wilder?
We don't. We have our next candidate teed up for 3:30 your time.
Okay, well, this committee will stand in recess until 3:30 p.m.